Ever wondered what goes into turning those tobacco leaves we see in fields into the cigars and chewing tobacco on the shelves?
Yeah, it's a process most people don't think about.
Well, today we're taking a deep dive into the world of a curing room worker, getting down and dirty with the details. And if you're thinking about a career in this field, stick around because we're going to arm you with what you need to ace that interview.
That's right. We're cracking open RoleCatcher's career guide for this one.
It's packed with insights, even how their AI can give you an edge. So let's jump right into it.
Sounds good.
Picture this. You're face-to-face with a hiring manager, and they hit you with, describe your experience working in a curing room. Now, what if you're fresh out of school, no actual tobacco experience? What's the play here?
Well, you got to think transferable skills.
Okay, I like that.
Have you ever worked a kitchen job? Maybe in a bakery? Monitoring ovens, knowing how heat affects things, that kind of stuff translates surprisingly well.
So even if you haven't stepped foot in a curing room, you can still speak their language.
Exactly.
Now, another question the guide flags is, how do you ensure products are properly cured? This feels like where really knowing your stuff shines.
It does, and mentioning those key things, temperature, humidity, color, even texture, shows you've done your homework.
Right.
But to really stand out, try referencing a specific tool used to monitor these. Shows you're hands-on.
So instead of just, I'd check the temperature, it's more like I'd use a hygrometer to make sure humidity stays in that sweet spot for, say, burley tobacco.
Now you're talking.
Right. Specificity is key.
You got it.
Okay, safety time. The next question is, what steps do you take to maintain a clean and safe curing room environment? Seems pretty straightforward.
It is, but this is where you prove you're all about safety. Lay out those protocols, using approved cleaning agents, sterilizing equipment, even how you'd organize the workspace to avoid accidents.
Showing them you're already thinking like a pro.
And if you want to go above and beyond, slip in some relevant safety regulations. Mention OSHA standards, for example. Shows you know your stuff.
Nice. Now, this next question is a bit of a curveball. Tests those problem-solving skills. How would you handle a product that has not been properly cured?
Yeah, that one. RoleCatcher actually suggests the three-step approach. Isolate the problem product, figure out the root cause, then determine the best course of action.
Like a curing room detective. You're not just spotting the issue, you're taking charge.
Exactly.
Okay.
Imagine a candidate saying, first thing, I'd inform my supervisor, isolate that batch to prevent further issues, then I'd get to work investigating what went wrong. That's initiative.
Shows you can handle the heat, even when things go wrong. Now, before we move on, quick detour. Something really cool in RoleCatcher is their AI stuff.
Oh, yeah, that's useful.
They've got this tool that actually analyzes job descriptions,
Yeah.
then helps tailor your resume.
Game changer. It helps you pinpoint those exact skills and keywords hiring managers are looking for. Increases your chances of getting noticed.
Like having a secret weapon.
Kind of, yeah.
And get this, their AI can even help you practice interview answers, gives you feedback on your delivery. It's like having a personal coach in your pocket.
Technology these days, amazing.
Okay, so back to the interview questions. Next up is, how do you maintain accurate records of the curing process? What are we thinking here?
This one's all about meticulous attention to detail. You want to highlight your ability to maintain those records, whether it's digital logs, spreadsheets, good old-fashioned handwritten notes. The key is to emphasize your system and consistency. You could say something like, I record temperature and humidity readings every 2 hours in a dedicated logbook, making note of any observations about the tobacco's appearance and aroma.
Right, like you're showing them you're on top of it, someone they can rely on for those details. Now, next question is all about organization. How do you ensure that products are properly labeled and stored in the curing room?
This one screams organization and following protocols. You'll want to emphasize your understanding of those labeling techniques, using clear, accurate labels with batch numbers, dates, all that good stuff, and showcase your knowledge of proper storage. Mention things like temperature-controlled environments and proper ventilation. Details.
So painting that picture for the interviewer, you're not just tossing tobacco leaves on a shelf, you've got a system.
Exactly. Consistency is key in this line of work.
All right, get ready, because this next one feels like a real-life scenario. Can you describe a time when you had to troubleshoot an issue in a previous role?
The dreaded behavioral question. Don't worry, though, you've got this.
How should they approach this one?
Think back to a time you faced a challenge head-on. Maybe not in a curing room, but any situation where you had to think on your feet. Maybe you're working in a fast-paced restaurant kitchen. Talk about that. How did you handle the dinner rush when the ticket machine went down?
So it's about adapting those experiences. but how do you make it relevant to this job?
Use the STAR method. Situation, task, action, and result. Set the scene, describe the problem, explain what you did, and highlight the positive outcome.
So if it's the restaurant example, you could say something like, it was a Friday night, slammed, and suddenly the system for sending orders to the kitchen crashed. My task was to make sure those orders still got to the cooks. Chaos avoided. I jumped in, grabbed a notepad, started taking down orders the old-fashioned way, and relayed them to the kitchen. It wasn't pretty, but we got through it with minimal delays. The customers never knew the difference.
Exactly. That shows you're resourceful, calm under pressure, and can handle a curveball.
And those are qualities any employer would appreciate, curing room or otherwise.
Absolutely. Those are those transferable skills we keep talking about. They can take you far.
And speaking of going far, let's not forget how RoleCatcher can give you that extra boost by identifying even more of those transferable skills.
Exactly. Even if you think you don't have direct experience, chances are you got skills that apply to this field. You just got to know how to sell them. And that's where RoleCatcher comes in.
Totally. They can help you dig deep and showcase that potential, even if you're new to the world of tobacco. And with that, we are going to take a quick pause. When we come back, we'll dive into more of those interview questions and see how RoleCatcher's AI can really help you shine. Stay with us. And we are back, diving right back into the world of curing rooms, prepping for those interviews.
We're on a roll.
So next question zeroes in on safety. How do you ensure you are following all safety protocols in the curing room? This feels like more than just reciting a list, right?
It is, yeah. This is about showing them safety is a priority for you. Talk about regular equipment checks, making sure there's good ventilation, really emphasizing the importance of that personal protective equipment that's being proactive.
Right, not waiting for an accident to happen.
Exactly. And to really drive that home, mention specific hazards like tobacco dust. Talk about how proper ventilation and respiratory protection are crucial for the long haul. That shows you're thinking long-term about your health and the health of your team.
Smart. Now, this next one might throw some folks off if they haven't been in a leadership role. Can you describe a time when you had to train a new team member on a process?
Yeah, that training word can be intimidating. But it doesn't have to be about formal training sessions. Think about any time you had to explain something complex, maybe teach a friend a new recipe, or show your grandma how to use that new smartphone.
Okay, so it's more about sharing knowledge and breaking things down.
Exactly. Highlight that patience, being able to communicate clearly, adapting to how people learn best. You could say something like, I know everyone learns differently, so I try to explain things in a few ways, always making sure they feel good about asking questions if something's unclear.
Creating that safe space for learning.
Exactly. Because at the end of the day, a well-trained team is a successful team.
Love it. Okay, ready for the final interview question from RoleCatcher's Guide. This one's all about staying ahead of the game. How do you stay up to date with the latest developments and trends in the curing industry?
Now that's a question that separates those who are just looking for a job from those who are passionate about the craft. You got to show them you're in it for the long haul. Don't just say you're a fast learner. Give them specifics.
I'm picking up what you're putting down. Instead of just saying, I love to learn, maybe say something like, I'm subscribed to Tobacco Weekly, and there was this really interesting article about sustainable curing practices that I found fascinating.
Boom, there you go. Or mention attending industry webinars, being active in online forums where professionals share their insights. It all shows that initiative.
It's about demonstrating that you're invested in your growth, even in a field that's steeped in tradition. There's always something new to discover, right?
Absolutely. The tobacco industry is constantly evolving. And showing that you're eager to evolve with it, that's gold to an employer.
Now, before we move on, I want to circle back to something we touched on earlier, RoleCatcher's AI tools. Remember how they can help you tailor your resume and even practice those interview answers?
It's like having a secret weapon in your back pocket. Imagine getting instant feedback on your interview responses, figuring out areas where you can improve, and building that confidence before you even set foot in the interview room.
It's like having a personal interview coach available 24/7.
Right. It's like having a superpower.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Okay, let's shift gears for a bit and zoom out to the bigger picture. RoleCatcher's Guide also sheds some light on the pros and cons of a career as a curing room worker. What are some of the perks?
Well, for one, it's hands-on work. You get to see the fruits of your labor, literally. There's something really satisfying about being part of that process, transforming raw tobacco leaves into a finished product. It's a craft.
You're part of a legacy.
Exactly. And there's potential to move up the ladder, especially in quality control, Your attention to detail, that keen eye, that's valuable in this field.
So there's room to grow.
There is. It's not just a job, it can be a real career path. But like with any job, it's important to be aware of the downsides too.
Right, every rose has its thorns. What does the guide say about that?
Well, it mentions the exposure to tobacco and those chemicals involved, which, let's be real, can be health risks. You've got to be aware of that.
Safety first, always.
Absolutely. And it can be physically demanding. Long hours on your feet, repetitive motions, things to consider if you have any physical limitations.
Important to know your own body and what you can handle.
Exactly. And while there are opportunities for advancement, it might not be as fast-paced as other careers.
It's about finding that balance between your passions and your goals.
Right. But even if you end up deciding this particular path isn't for you, the skills you gain prepping for this interview, they're priceless. Problem solving, communication, attention to detail, these are transferable skills. Employers in all sorts of fields are looking for those.
So you come out ahead either way. You'd either land a great job or you walk away with a toolbox full of new skills and a better understanding of a fascinating industry. And on that note, we're going to take a quick breather. When we come back, we'll wrap things up with some final thoughts on how to absolutely crush this interview and use all these RoleCatcher insights to land that dream job. Don't go anywhere. And we're back, ready to close out this deep dive into the world of curing room workers.
We've covered a lot, but I think we've given our listeners some solid tools for their interview prep.
You know, as we've been talking, it's really hit me how this job is this unique blend of honoring tradition, but also needing those modern skills.
It really is. It's like you're tapping into generations of knowledge, right? But you've also got to be up on those new technologies, those safety standards, everything we've been talking about.
Absolutely. So to everyone listening, if you're feeling, I don't know, maybe a little overwhelmed by this interview coming up, remember what we've talked about today.
You've got the skills, trust me. And with that RoleCatcher guide, those AI tools they've got, you can walk in there feeling ready, feeling good.
Speaking of feeling good, any last-minute tips to really help our listeners nail that first impression?
Oh, for sure. Dress to impress. Even if the actual work environment is more casual, showing up in, at least business casual, it shows you're serious about this. And be on time, obviously.
Makes all the difference.
Totally. And when you're answering those questions, remember to really play up those transferable skills.
Connect those dots for them.
Exactly. Even if you haven't worked directly with tobacco before, talk about those experiences that show you're a hard worker, you pay attention to detail, you're a fast learner. Those things matter.
They really do. And don't be afraid to ask questions, too.
Oh, huge.
Yeah.
It shows you're engaged, that you're actually interested in what they do.
It's a two-way street, this interview.
Exactly. Asking good questions. It helps you figure out, too, if this company, this specific role is actually the right fit for you. Don't be afraid to walk away if it's not feeling right.
Couldn't agree more. Okay, any final words of wisdom for our aspiring curing room workers before we wrap things up?
Just this. Relax. Be yourself. Let that enthusiasm show, They want to see that you're passionate about this field.
Absolutely. Passion goes a long way.
It really does.
And remember, even if this specific opportunity doesn't pan out the way you hoped, the skills you've gained, the things we've talked about today, those are valuable.
100%.
You've leveled up. You've got new skills. You've practiced those interview techniques. And hey, you might have even discovered some new career paths to explore that you hadn't even considered before.
Exactly. It's all part of the journey.
And on that note, we're going to wrap up this deep dive into the world of a curing room worker.
Been fun.
We hope you found it insightful, informative, and maybe even a little bit inspiring. Remember, you've got this. With the right preparation, a positive attitude, and hey, maybe even RoleCatcher in your corner, you can achieve those career goals. Until next time, happy job hunting.